Hey, thanks for stopping by the channel and welcome to another episode of What's That All About? So this is the brother or sister episode to what I did a couple of days ago called Show Some Skin. This is called Show Some Action. Now, it's funny because I I sort of accidentally bumped into this topic. So bear with me. It's not that any of my videos are extraordinarily polished, but I may have to look a little bit more than usual at my notes. But if I'm being honest, okay, the last thing I want to see when I go to see, say, a John Wick film is a scene in the midst of the insane action and fighting and death and awesomeness that goes with every John Wick movie. I don't want to see a sex scene slapped in the middle of somewhere. Not even a flashback of his awesome departed wife. I don't want to see it. Same goes for Bruce Willis in the Die Hard movies. Say for example, I don't need to see his ass for any reason. It doesn't add anything to the movie or the plot, right? No, just keep the action going. That's why for me anyway, that's why I go to see those kinds of movies. And I mean, there's, for instance, in the Bourne Identity, right? The first of the Bourne series, didn't bother me when the two main characters, Jason Bourne and his lady love they have their intimate moment, but it's not overdone. And the action starts right back, and it's almost like the intensity stays right at that awesome level anyway. And you sort of wanted to see them connect, and they do it kind of quickly, and it's great. And it's implied that now there is that nice, that now you're rooting for both of them, and it's great. And she becomes such a big part of the story, which I love because she's great. And then even James Bond movies, right? I know his are, admittedly slightly longer, more intense sex scenes, but even then, they play off the thought of maybe the bad guy lurking or watching, as things are going down. Oh, that's a terrible phrase, but you know what I mean. I hope I don't get in trouble for that, but his sex scenes still are more implied than you don't see too much that really goes into it other than the sexuality, and you can get a vibe for all that. And then there's, as soon as it's over, it's on the other side of the door, they're the bad dudes, and everything just keeps going. So, even one of such overt sexuality, in the movies for Bond and his reputation and whatnot, they still maintain that integrity of the movie of it's really not going to be the first thing you describe. You're going to describe the action when you talk about Bond movies. So, don't get me wrong. Now, there's movies like those 50 Shades of Color, 50 Shades of Gray or Christian. I don't know the real name of the movies. There's 50 Shades of something, 50 Shades of Sex, apparently. But I know that those movies it's like sex. It's its own character in those movies, so that it's mandatory. And it's actually, from what I've been told, I saw the last one, the last, which, probably was stupid because they were married or they got married, and there was actually a good mystery to it, which is why I ended up watching it. It was pretty decent. But the sex scenes were I felt very much so was mandatory. I didn't feel like they were overdone. There's a real intimacy and intensity between that relationship that really kind of, it's palpable, those, I mean, God, I really, I don't give them enough credit. They were actually really well done. But okay, one actor that I always give a pass to because I just love his movies, I would say 99% of them, is Tom Cruise. Because in the first Top Gun, I hated that whole take my breath away. There's one part where there's a thing of saliva between the kissing, and I can't get past it. So I from now on, whenever I watch that, or if I'm doing both, if I'm watching Top Gun and then watching Maverick, I gotta fast forward through it. And I hate that. I like to fast forward through anything Tom Cruise does because, you know, there's also one other movie he did. The Mission Impossible movies are my favorites, and sometimes I do a marathon of those. And, you know, in Mission Impossible 2, he and Thandie Newton have an awkward sex scene that doesn't really, it seems gratuitous. Like, it doesn't seem like it needed to be there. I think their intimacy could have been kind of cinched with a kiss or something. That's the other thing. I think kissing is more intimate sometimes than sex scenes, especially some of the sex scenes that are out there. But it doesn't matter. It's Tom Cruise, and he can just about do whatever he wants because he's unbelievable. But, you know, audiences that were polled about, they were asked about, after seeing John Wick, they were polled and said, you know, would you rather see John Wick in a love scene with, like, Bridget Moynihan, the wife that is deceased in the movie, and he sees flashbacks, or watch, you know, John Wick kill somebody with a pencil? Winning the day, hands down, the pencil. Everybody wants to see him disassemble somebody with a pencil. Now, it's also been said in the comments, a couple of people said, you know, we understand that Wick's totally, he's a sensitive guy. I mean, look how he is about his dog in the first one, and then, you know, at the puppy, and then he gets a new dog, and it's like he is so protective and in love with this animal, and it's shown because the dog's in love with him too. But that's all you need to see about John Wick. You don't need to see him, you know, making out with somebody. You don't need to see that. I want to see total ass kicking and all that stuff. But I mean, honestly, there are movies that can pull off both, right? You got to have great action accompanied by a solid, well-timed and play sex scene, and they're rare. It's almost like seeing a unicorn, but they can happen. Like, if you watch Deadpool, which you should, because it's a riot, but their sex scenes, like in the first one, it was almost like part of a comedy scene, but it was also like an action scene. So you had some of that, like, you didn't lose the rhythm of the movie. You know, Deadpool, nothing was taken away from that sex scene, if you want to call it that. It's actually made it just even better. Another movie that timed their sex scene just right is an oldie but goodie, Bruce Willis movie called The Fifth Element. They saved the sex scene, the one and only sex scene, to the very last scene right before the credits come up, which I was thrilled at. I was like, oh, God, because I don't even have to watch it. You know, they end up together, great. They're in some kind of like hyperbolic, like, capsule where they're getting regenerated. Oh, yeah, they're getting regenerated, all right. But another one I think is the best timed sex scene and so appropriate for the movie is Romancing the Stone. Another classic, Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, Danny DeVito, outstanding movie. Great timed sex scene when Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner finally sleep together, and he's stolen the map to... Anyway, it's part of the plot. You needed to have it happen exactly the way it happened. So in those instances, and I'm sure there's plenty more, but I mean, you can kind of see my point. You know, movies using sex for no other reason than to crush a couple minutes, I just feel like that's a lack of imagination. You know, it's like there's a movie called Hard to Kill with Steven Seagal. I think he's one of the weirdest dudes going, but I do like watching sometimes, like Under Siege 2, and Hard to Kill, Above the Law. But Hard to Kill is hard to watch because there's a scene where he and his real life wife get intimate, and it's just so awkward. You want to leave the room. It's so awkward. Again, another fast forward moment for me when I do my marathons. But the bottom line for me is, you know, action movies, keep blowing shit up. Keep the action coming, make the stunts bigger. That's great. That's what people want to see. But if you're interested in different kinds of movies, like a drama or something, then obviously you're going to want to, you know, you're going to expect to see some sex scenes and stuff. But don't go ruining a perfectly awesome, say, the Taken series. You don't need to see sex in those. You just don't. It ruins the rhythm. Terrible word to use, but you know what I'm saying. It's don't take away from the integrity of these incredibly awesome, violent, action, sick movies. They're fun to watch. But anyway, I did find that the feedback from audiences was really interesting. Men and women alike. It was just, don't waste our time. I don't want my adrenaline rush interrupted. I want that to sustain. And sex scenes don't give me an adrenaline rush. They're not meant to. They're meant to, they belong in a different kind of movie, right? So, my action movies, I want them to be action. Other kinds of movies, love movies, dramas, all this stuff. Yeah, toss whatever you want in there. It's like a kitchen sink type movie. Do it all. I don't care. And the movies that can pull off both, hats off to you. You're geniuses, and keep doing what you're doing. But I hope it was a silly episode, I know, but I just felt like it needed to be said. It's more of an opinion piece. Once again, those are going to pop in here and there. But I hope you're doing well and staying happy and healthy, and stay weird. Clearly, it's what I do on a daily basis. It's fun. And take care. And I'll see you next time. I am not sure what the next one's going to be, but it'll be a doozy.